Hey, it's Andrew with another episode of That's Interesting. What's interesting today is about functions. There's many different types of functions, different types of features, different types of stuff that you can do with functions. So first of all, what are functions? Functions are they're expressions, well not really expressions, they're equations that tell you about the inputs and outputs. But one major rule is the vertical line test. There cannot be more than one x input for every output f of x. Okay, glad that's explained. Piecewise functions are functions that have subfunctions given its domain. So if you have a function like this, you can break it apart using the restrictions of the domain. So we have this function for that area and then that function for that area. Okay, I wish I had my eraser. Okay, I do. So let's see. Y equals, or f of x equals absolute value of x, which can be broken down into two separate functions, this one and that one. Then we're dealing with partial, or deals with like partial stuff. Composite functions, however, are functions within a function. We can combine functions by putting them in the x value, by rather putting them inside one function. So we're placing x as g of x, and then vice versa. You can also plug them in itself. You can get that. And then more of the differences. Composite functions are more operational, so it deals with plus, minus, multiply. Or restrictions can deal with piecewise functions. You can also use union. Not sure about intersect. However, there are inverse functions that are not really about this entirely, but they are pairs of functions that have reversed x and y values and reflect y equals x. So it's a bit of a mirror. Same thing with reverse x and y values. You can do that with this equation, 5x squared plus 3x minus 2, and you can end up with the inverse. By using inverse operations, you can get f of, well, that's how you do it. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but later it equals plus or minus the square root of x plus 245 over 100 over 5 x. Okay, x equals plus or minus the square root of x plus 245 over 100 over 5, and that's all subtracted by 3/10. When you can do that, you can find this area. However, this isn't a real function, or function that we're dealing with the vertical line test. So you can use two different portions. You can find two sections of the parabola. I used both, or rather all of these three different functions into one. It's a piecewise function using composite functions of an inverse function. So I ended up with two. They look like this. They're functions with the vertical line test, correct? And then there's parametric functions. They're functions with two or more variables for a variable. Well, it can do like a variable t, because that is another thing. It's kind of like time. Knowing where you are given t. This might not be a good example. I might have to recheck my work, but yeah, that's basically it for functions. Or not entirely yet, we still have more things to deal with. So we'll catch you up on the next part.